Joy seekers, joy givers, you have found the right place. This is your special fall series of Infusion of Joy. My name is Deb McGregor. I am so pleased to introduce to you Eric Nance. Welcome. Oh my gosh. Welcome to the show, Eric. What was that?
I like that we're already not being perfect because I did my credentials wrong too. It should be CPD, not CPE.
Oh
But
my.
I think that's our theme already. We're not going to be perfect, Deb. So you know what? Let it run.
Let's let it go as it is, which is actually a part of our conversation. Friends, today we are going to be talking about the stake of mental health. We're going to be talking about what is at stake, not just with the patients receiving mental health therapy, but also the providers, the people who are here, the helping profession, all of the things. We're going to have the conversation that maybe at times is difficult to have. And Eric, that's why you're here, because we're going to have that difficult conversation today.
We are. And I apologize in advance if feelings are hurt, but I truly believe, Deb, if we're going to talk about the hard stuff, we have to do it in a way that is as truthful as it can be. Because I think as long as we're truthful, the damage is pretty minimal. And so having said that, the truth is a dangerous thing, especially in social services work. So I expect that that's going to be borne out today as we talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So we should let people know that you are a therapist. You have your own business of Pathways for You. You
Yes.
also host the podcast Dark Side of Therapy, which, by the way, I love that name. When I saw that, I'm like, ooh, da 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 da, right? Like it needs to have the little music with it, because there is, right? Like everything, there's the light and there's the dark. And how can you have the light if you don't know the dark, right?
Absolutely.
And I always talk about like shining light on the darkness, and I believe that is a lot of what you're doing, is that you're actually bringing it to the light so that we can have the conversation. Talk to us a little bit about your background. Like, why did you decide to become a therapist in the first place?
Yeah, great question. So I believe it was my mom many years ago. She said to me, and I lost my mom 6 years ago, huge influence on my
Oh,
life. But she had said to me at one point, she goes, Eric, you sure like to talk. And so you're either going to become a therapist or a lawyer. And I think that's really where the whole thing started. And perhaps I chose the lesser of the evils, but I I've always had a love of just figuring out people, and
mhm.
probably through my own bouts in my life of loneliness or isolation, or not feeling like I fit in. I've really been on this path to figure out humanity, because the nice thing, Deb, is when you're on that path of figuring out humanity, you're kind of figuring yourself out too. And I just love figuring out how things work. I love problem solving. I love helping people find practical solutions. So that's a short answer to a very big question. But it's almost like, what's the order of operations? How can we get to the bottom of this? I just love that, and I love applying that to the mental health model.
Yeah. Now, obviously, the majority of mental health over the last few years has been done online. So when you first started in practice, were you in person?
No, I actually, funny enough, no, I had moved to Minot and kept a lot of my Bemidji, Minnesota people. So I was doing only telehealth. It has only been in the last couple months that I started seeing people in person again. And
Okay.
I love it. It's wonderful. But this medium, let's give it credit, it has allowed people to access mental health that ordinarily would not. And so it's not going anywhere. But I do love the feeling of having somebody in front of me again. But I'm going to keep it hybrid because I like seeing people in different states. I love that, somebody from Minnesota wants to work with me. Great, we can make that happen. So I think that's the real beauty of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about mental health, I love that you bring the word humanity in this, because we are all human beings, not doings, right? And I
Right.
love that when I started at the beginning, I had the little flub, because one of the things I love that you said to me is, Deb, we don't need to be perfect. And
Right.
if we could normalize not being perfect, that right there is one step for us.
Absolutely. So here's where I kind of came to this, Deb, and I'm going to overtalk today. So at any point, you just hold up the stop sign. It has only been in my supervision of up and coming therapists that I have learned to be human. I never got supervised in this stuff. I never had anybody in my mental health journey say, it's okay that you're making mistakes, at least that I can remember. I don't recall anybody ever pointing that out. Well, when you're supervising young clinicians, um, you better put yourself in a position to be vulnerable and learn, because they're going to let you know if you're not doing that. And it was really my clinical director, one of my best friends. He was the first supervisor that ever showed me that it was okay to be vulnerable as somebody in an authority position.
Mhm.
He actually came to his staffing, Deb, and said, I'm crashing and burning. And I took away from that, well, wait a minute, it's okay to be a leader and be flawed and be behind on things. I can do that.
Mhm.
So I've realized my supervisees respond a lot better when I talk about my failures and the things I don't do so well, and being humorous and being goofy and having fun. Uh, we play Jeopardy every 3 or 4 months in my supervision group. You know why we do it? Not to learn anything, to have fun. Yeah, I throw in some topics like, tell me the DSM code, all that stuff. But we also have categories where I have to sing. I have to sing a song, and they have to
Yeah.
tell me, what the song is. And after one of the groups, one of the newer supervisees said, "That's the best group experience I ever had in my life."
Mm.
So grateful for that feedback. But it all comes from a place of you've got to be willing to be goofy and,
Mhm.
and look kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
those
absolutely.
are honesty.
What I love about what you're bringing up too is, well, of course, fun is a piece of neuroplasticity, right? And so
Yes,
if we're going to learn, like that's just a part of it as well. One of the
right.
things that you and I have talked about is this need to be mentoring, especially those new clinicians coming out of school. They're just getting started. I mean, I remember having conversations with my friends who had had their, let's just say, their very first appointment. And it was literally like the deer in the headlight look, like, oh my gosh, everything I thought I knew, I'm not sure if I know, right? And there's
Right.
that sense almost of imposter syndrome, right? Talk to me about this need that we have to really support. Well, it's really everyone, but there's a unique need at the beginning.
Yeah. We need to do a much better job, again, going back to allowing these people to feel human. I think we also, Deb, don't do a very good job of telling the new clinician the job is dangerous, okay, and all the risks that come with it. There really is this expectation that you're going to get into the job and be fine. You're trained to do this. And the analogy that I use, and I did this on my presentation over in Duluth. If you think about a person that builds homes, a person that is a contractor, when you're trained in building houses, they don't start you off with the Taj Mahal.
Mhm.
You might start by building a dog house, okay,
Right.
or a tiny home. But in mental health, we don't do that. You know how we do it? You get to a staffing and we ask, who has an opening? So you give a new clinician a case that has generational trauma or generational poverty or something they aren't remotely ready to take on. I've seen it happen 1,000 times, Deb, and no one ever talks about that. No one seems to give that a second thought. And I hear all this talk about ethics and all this stuff. Well, where's the ethics in giving unprepared clinicians these cases that really require expertise and specialty and having been in the field for a while? So when you mention the deer in headlights, that's because they're sitting back thinking, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. And the minute that that happens, the doubt creeps in, right? And then all of a sudden it becomes, oh my gosh, I'm not prepared. I'm right. And then where do we lose focus on? The client.
Absolutely. And I've watched them come to staffings and they're asking so many questions. How do I do this? How do I do this? And you want to say to them, you're not ready for this. But I've never said that, maybe embarrassingly so. Maybe I should have spoken up when I didn't, because you don't start them out on cases like that. Now, to be fair, Deb, there are cases that start out what we call vanilla and then they become rocky road. But let's at least try to
What
give
about
our
mint
new
chocolate chip? I want mint
I
chocolate
know,
chip.
I know. I'm
Really? Okay, now I'm hungry for ice cream. Thank you.
I'm already, I'm already thinking about Cold Stone. I may hit them up later, but yeah, but the point is again, they are not ready for this, and the expectation is that you're going to rock this case when you
Right.
really have no business getting this case. I specialize in personality disorders, the only thing I'm certified in, but I'm really good at that because I focused a lot of my career on it. But I didn't start off with somebody with BPD. How can you ask a new clinician to do that? They just don't have the understanding. But that's what I see happening, and I'm not sure what to do about that. I just know it needs to change, and probably through even our dialogue, it's one of the cultivating factors. because this is not right what we're doing to new clinicians.
Right. Well, and which then ultimately isn't right for the client. Like I always think about this sacred space that clinicians hold with that client. And it is so I do call it a sacred space because it really is. You have somebody coming to you wanting to heal, wanting to improve their life, wanting to find out like what is going on with me, what's happening here. There's a huge responsibility that comes with that. Huge responsibility.
There
And
is.
you mentioned when people come out, I can't remember the exact word that you used, but almost, I want to say it was almost like danger. Like there can be a danger. We better define what you mean by danger, because I'm sure there might be somebody listening going, okay, wait a minute, exactly what did you mean, Eric?
Oh, absolutely. And Deb, to be fair, I love when I have to explain myself because I believe that one of the primary factors of being a leader or somebody in charge, so to speak, is you have your argument, right? But you better know the counter argument as well as you know your own argument. So I'm perfectly happy to do that.
Oh my gosh, Eric, you would have made a great attorney. What are you kidding me?
I know.
Your mom was so right. Oh my gosh.
I'm 46. Is that too late for law school?
Hey, imagine having a clinician in a law school. You could go, I mean, you could go anywhere, right?
Deb, it's a scary thought, but I thank you for letting me embellish that. Okay, so let's talk about danger. All right. When you think about jobs that are dangerous, can I just ask you a question? What comes to your mind when you think dangerous job?
Well, it depends. So like law enforcement, I would think like somebody getting, potentially shot, whatever, firefighter, of course, fires. But I do think about, quite frankly, I think about even the person at the grocery store that has somebody yelling at them because the grocery price went up. So danger, for me, it can look like a lot of different things.
That is that I hadn't even thought of that one. But let's think about the firefighter for a second and why we know that's a dangerous job. We know that's a dangerous job because the danger is so proximate. You see a fire in front of you, and most people know that can kill you. If you're a police officer, we hear all the time about police officers getting shot, killed. I mean, we just know the proximate danger of that. If you're a test pilot, you're up in the sky, things can go bad.
Yeah.
In mental health work, the danger is not proximate enough, Deb, meaning you don't see the danger immediately because it's a slow chipping away, gradual process.
Mhm.
Till you wake up one day and you think, I wish I would have worked in the oil fields because I am so hollow. I'm not making a difference. I can't relate to my family anymore. I'm not sleeping, which puts you at risk for going off the road. And I just don't care anymore because this work does, as Greg Lester would say, hollow people out. Now, that
Mm.
sounds like danger to me, but we don't sell it like that because I think we're afraid to tell people that working with people is anything but wonderful. And it is wonderful. I would not do anything else in my life but work with people, but I know it's dangerous. It just doesn't seem dangerous until the damage has already affected you. So there's my case for it being dangerous. How did I do?
I thought you did amazing. And of course, my curiosity starts going to, so what are preventative things we can do to lessen the danger?
Okay, so let's get real controversial. Let's stop calling it self-care. People are tired of that word. I think it has no meaning anymore, Deb. I know we've adopted that word to kind of be here's what we need to do, but we need to go, I think, again, from a preventative perspective,
Mhm.
which goes back to, again, the college age person needs to know what they're getting into. I think we sit them down and all we say is this work is dangerous. That's all we have to say. I think we start there. This work is dangerous. I don't think that's a bad thing to say. Now, here's the part two. What do we do about that?
Mhm.
I think we have to reframe the entire paradigm of it. And here's how I think we should do it. This is an energy game, Deb. This work takes energy away from us.
Mhm.
Everything we do is frontal lobe driven. We're tired because we're always thinking and doing treatment plans and deciding things, all this stuff. So you need to look at it as a competition. What is going to compete with what I am losing energy wise? And as
Mhm.
near as I can tell, there's only a couple areas we can go to compete. One of them is, get a load of this, having fun. Having fun. Having
I love
fun.
it. Yes.
Greg Lester, quote him again, fun is the biggest energy creator we've ever known. Do you know how many people I sit with, Deb, client or supervisee or even peer, and I say, "What do you do for fun?" They say, "I don't know. I go fishing once a year." Um, this is a huge part of the problem that nobody seems to really understand.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Here's
Oh, I believe it
Yeah,
100%. Okay. So yeah. So fun is one strategy.
fun is one, and here's the other one, and this is just the cousin to fun, which is play.
Yeah.
Play. Part of my presentation, I do this thing where I show October 31st, okay? And all the adults are in their costumes, are having a great time because they're playing, Deb. Yeah, they're probably also getting drunk, but they're playing because it's fun to dress up.
Yeah.
But do we do it after October 31st? Most of us no, because if you walk into a bar on November 1st in costume, you may get arrested.
Right. That's true.
So
Halloween, making everything normalized so that we,
that's
right? I mean, it's
right.
fascinating.
But how many adults want to keep playing after October 31st? I feel like, and I'm 46, I don't know at what point somebody in my life said, Nance, you're done playing. Your playing days are over. Time to be an adult. But the brain doesn't know any better, Deb. The brain doesn't know any better. The brain still says, I need to play and have fun.
Mhm.
Now, I've done supervision now in one form or another for 15, 16 years. When I ask my supervisees, what do you do for fun? Most of them say very, very little. Okay. And I've had supervisees say to me, please don't give me more to do.
Mhm.
I understand that. But here's my counter argument, which is if you keep going the way you're going and you do go down the path of burnout, you're going to have to do 100 times more to deal with that mess than to
Yeah.
be preventative now. And it is a paradox, right? You have to do more to get better.
Yes.
Okay. So it takes work. So that's the thing I think we also don't tell people. It takes work to
Mhm.
compete with this job you're in. But
Yes.
I don't think most people want to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, yes, and what's fascinating about this is, isn't it interesting that we'll put all this energy into worry? We'll put all this energy. I just was reading a thing about the lines to go to a specific concert, and people spent all day. I don't want to name the names because, but
Right, right.
basically, it's like people were willing to use a whole day to go to this concert. But are we even willing to take 30 minutes to have some fun? And this is, yes, we're talking clinicians here and therapists, but really, doesn't this really apply to all of us in some way, shape, or form?
Yes.
I think about kids. I was going to grab some of my little toys over here, but I mean,
Oh,
I think
please.
about, but well, no, you want to see my toys? Okay.
Uh, uh,
Well,
yeah, I have mine, right? This stuff. I mean, come
oh
on.
yeah. Well,
You know,
I have I do drumsticks a lot. Like for me, I just start playing and jam. Okay, right? Like for me, that's a thing. Blowing bubbles for me is another thing. It's and when you watch adults do those things, you do the smile lights up. People just get
right.
completely excited. Like it's just it's like being
Absolutely.
a kid again. And when we come as a child, I also believe it activates our creativity. It activates a different type of connection. And of course, you and I know there's the brain piece behind that. And so, what I
Right.
love about what you're saying is that it's not all doom and gloom reporting here. We do have solutions, fun and play and connection with others, I think is also, as you're talking about this, is coming into this. So, how do
Yes.
we get this message out? Because I feel like this is the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So, like I said, every conversation, every solution starts with a conversation. So we have to have
Mhm.
conversations like this. I'll keep having conversations like this on my podcast. And really, Deb, I'm on a mission. I've applied to present at the big mental health conference down in Minneapolis in March, and certainly I will bring that message down there too, like I did to Duluth. But I think this is a strange word, but permission. We
Mm,
have to give people permission to do this. Okay. And I honestly, I think all it takes is somebody saying, you have my permission to have fun. You have my permission to play. You have my permission to be goofy and dumb, whatever words we're going to choose. But I don't think most people feel like they have permission to
yeah.
do that. Um,
And
I
not just
talked,
a little, like full on permission,
yes,
right? Like if we're going to do it, let's do it.
let's go big.
Yeah, why
And,
not?
Why not, Deb? And the other problem too is it takes you out of your, I hate to say it, comfort zone.
The C word. Oh.
I know it's a nasty, nasty word, isn't it? But it's the only way we grow. It's the
Yes.
only, and I know I disappoint so many clients when I say to them, yes, you're going to have to do things like, really, you're not just going to fix me. No, I'm not. You're going to have to feel uncomfortable because that's the only component to growth that we really have.
Yeah,
Feeling good
absolutely.
session after session really doesn't build a lot of growth, Deb. I'm sorry to be a naysayer about that. You have to do the thing you don't want to do typically to grow.
Yeah.
And it's
As you're
hard.
saying this, I'm one of the phraseologies I use with my clients often is it's learning to be comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Mm,
So it's going to be comfortable, but let's find the comfortable in the uncomfortable, because that for a lot of people can help them move a little. And I
right.
love the permission. I more than once have actually had clients write a permission slip to themselves and hang it on the fridge. I'm sure you probably have too. And like, I, Deb, give myself permission to have fun. Or I,
I
Deb, give
love it.
myself permission to say no so I can go have some fun. Like,
Right.
right? Because seeing it, like, I always think about, remember when I'm a little older than you are, but do you
Yeah,
remember
not
when the
really.
old days and they had the hall monitor and they had the little book and they had the little permission slips that, right, to get out of class?
I
And
do. I do.
it's like, I feel like I want it. They probably still sell them somewhere. I'm thinking I want to send those to each of my clients and say, this is your pad of permission slip to use them. Like,
I I
serious.
think that's a good idea. I'm gonna write that down too. I
Write
should.
that down.
Yeah.
Write that down. Because really, and it makes it fun. It makes it okay, and like you said, it gives them permission, even though hopefully eventually there's an empowerment that they can do it without needing to hear it from Eric or needing to hear it from Deb or somebody, right?
Correct.
Oh my gosh, how brilliant is all of this?
I if Johnny Carson was still alive, I'm sure he would bring us on. It's great because I think, Deb, having honest dialogue and conversation is getting tougher for people. We're all so defensive, and we're all so siloed in our beliefs. And all I want to do is talk to people. I want to be able to talk to people, even if we disagree. I'm well aware that, again, everything I'm saying to you can be refuted. It can be. I hate to say it. There's a research study out there that says right now, Nance, that no value in play and you should be an adult and it's all bad. I just don't care because what I've observed and witnessed says a lot more to me than the research article that they're propagating. And most research would, in fact, very much agree that we need to have more fun and play. And I think too, let me go on a tangent here. Deb, I'm a gamer because I grew up in the Nintendo Atari era. I thought I'd be over it. Not a chance. I'll tell you why I game, because to me, to go to a different place, a different world where I can become a character, gets me away from my therapist role, where I'm not thinking about that when I'm traveling to a foreign, sci-fi land. And that's why I try to get people to game. I had a 60-year-old client turned on to gaming and she loves it
Mm.
because it gives this person or gave that person a chance to escape their anxiety and all their, because again, it is a different way of existing, even if it's a half hour a day, whatever.
Mhm.
But I think that's the real value in play and fun, is getting away from the self.
Yeah. Boy, I love that, just how you're bringing that in. I was visualizing myself, like, I love Miss Pac-Man, right? And I love okay, how many things can I do? And it's like I would get down to the point, okay, I know exactly what I need to do, right? And it becomes but so focused on that all the other stuff just sort of disappears. And of course, you and I know we're activating different parts of the
We
brain.
are. We are.
And so
Yep.
that it
Yep. Yep.
allows us to do that. And I love that. You have alluded a couple times to this podcast, Dark Side of Therapy. Let's
Yes.
talk a little bit more about that. I have a feeling will be people watching that want to know what you're doing with this podcast.
Well, so let me clear a couple things up. There are people in my social circle that don't like the name. And I guess because the connotation of dark side it can be kind of negative. And the reason we came up with that name had nothing to do with the dark forces, any of that. It was because there are dark things in therapy that don't get talked about. And it's a hard hitting word, Deb. And I think it at least invites people to check it out. Then there's people that think, because I'm a Star Wars fan, Dark Side, I did it because of that. And then there's the Pink Floyd people that are convinced that
You're
it's
just getting
about
them
that.
all.
I know. The Pink Floyd one is my favorite, but no, I just got to a point. I had. Do you want to hear the whole story again? I can.
Yeah, I kind of want to
All right.
hear about this, how this came about.
Okay, so it was really my website designer, Jonathan. He had a studio, he does podcasting type stuff, and I thought, it's time that I jump on and try this. I've got my target audience. Let's do it. And so yeah, we sat for like 3 or 4 hours, kind of planning things out. Came up with a name. Hardest thing I realized, Deb, is finding your target audience because he kept saying to me, he's like, "Look, you're all over the map, dude. This is not going to work." And I realized he's right. So I
Mm,
really decided to narrow it down to, yeah, students about to graduate or young clinicians.
mhm,
And they can be tough to reach because, again, they're busy, they got a lot going on, but that's really the target audience. And what I want to do on the dark side is the same thing we're doing, have an honest dialogue, or in this case, presentation about the darkest topics of mental health. So, a couple
mm,
episodes, I talk about things like what it's like to lose a client to suicide, what
mm,
it's like to lose a client to death, what it's really like to do your progress notes and be told you should do them with a client, you shouldn't do them with the client, you should do them here, do them there. Let's talk about that stuff.
mm,
um let's talk about leadership too. Let's talk about what that looks like. Let's bring in the really controversial topic of memory, because our
mm,
memories aren't perfect, and I know a lot of people who believe everything their clients tell them.
mm,
Well, guess what, Deb? Our memories, and this is evidence based, are not very good. But to say that to somebody, it's like, well, you're saying your client's a liar? No, I'm saying that it's a consideration that very few therapists, I think about.
mm,
Body language. I had a world famous body language expert, Mark Bowden, come on, talk about the importance of body language in therapy. I was never trained in this, Deb, but
mhm,
body language can be a huge component of treatment if we understand, what body language is saying to us. So, in a
mhm,
nutshell, we're trying to hit the topics that are uncomfortable and are going to
mhm,
make you think. Because I don't think a lot of therapists are doing that. I think a lot of therapists are doing yeah, let's show you the techniques and this and that.
mhm,
No, I want to be dark and I want to be truthful, and I don't care if it hurts a little bit. So
mm.
that's the dark side of therapy in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, and again, like you said earlier, how are we going to grow if we don't challenge the thinking and we don't challenge what we know? And I'm even thinking about the new research that continues to emerge out there. What we thought 5 years ago in terms of some of the best treatments for the brain and how the brain functions, now we've got all new research coming out, right?
Yes, we do.
And the more that that continues to emerge and we see it, the other thing in that is I like to call it like the holistic approach to our healing and our wellness, because what we know now is that there are things. I mean, drumming, I brought the drumstick. Piano, I love piano. I just read a report about how piano playing can actually heal specific centers of the brain. So
I re-
why wouldn't we explore these conversations? Like this, it's so hard to teach all this when you're going to school.
so so you just opened up a whole Pandora's box
Oh, I
here.
know. I love doing that.
I love it. I love it too. And boy, the energy is good, Deb. I want to give you a lot of credit because I love high energy people. Um, there was an article out of England. I don't know if you caught it. I forgot the two authors. I think one's name is Moncrief, but it's about the whole idea that serotonin probably has nothing to do with depression at all. And the research is now leaning towards we've had it wrong for many, many years. Well, imagine the controversy there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And another big thing about that is, well, then are people being lied to? Because people buy into medication, right? They buy into this is supposed to be a good thing. Um, I think part of the problem is that we sell solutions so quickly and easily that the practical often gets left behind. So
Mhm.
I'm kind of taking the conversation in this direction. Again, stop me at any time, because that's part of what I also think Dark Side is trying to achieve. But also in my clinical career, let's look at the practical first. But before we jump to everything else, let's look at what we can practically do before we start messing with your brain chemicals. The
Yeah.
problem is, Deb, in most cases, in my experience, people want it dealt with immediately.
Mhm.
They want it done and over with, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
and
think
people, because people want to feel better, right? And
yes,
especially if somebody has been, I'm just making this up. I am not a therapist. I really want to name that again. But I make this up about people in my world that if you've
sure.
been depressed, you've been down in all the things, just want to feel better, right? And so, hey, if you've got something that can do that for me, sign me up, right? Like sign me up. So I think, my gosh, that could be a whole nother conversation.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes.
I'm looking at the time. Can you believe we have already been here for 30 minutes? Like, what?
I know. This is
happened. Okay, so let me get your final thoughts. Like, what I think we've hit on some really good things. We need to
I
change
think so
the
too.
paradigm of how we're looking at this.
Yep.
That humanity, we really need to bring in what's human about this. Permission to fail and to be human. We can write ourselves permission slips. We need to have fun. We need to play. What am I missing? What is like the most important thing we need people to take away?
Okay, here's the most important thing. Let's stop being afraid of the difficult conversation. Let's stop assuming that people can't hear the truth, because
Mm,
people are way more resilient and way more powerful than we give them credit for. But if you give them the idea that they don't have this stuff, you're disempowering them. I've watched it happen all the time. But that is exactly what is happening. That's what we need to do. We need to be a little courageous, and we need to throw away this idea that leadership is simply about telling people what to do. No, we need to give people some credit. We need to give them some honesty. They can handle it. That's
yeah.
my final thought.
Oh my gosh, that could be a whole other show. We might have to do another
Could
show
be.
because it's this whole thing about this. I love that you said that we need to stop assuming people can't hear the truth, because it's sort of like the, oh, I can't possibly whatever because they will da 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 da. Wait a minute, why are you making that decision for them? Like, what's that
Right.
all about, right?
Right.
And
Right.
of course, you and I both know it usually actually ties back to something here that we need to
It
be
does.
getting curious about, right? Oh
Absolutely.
my gosh, there's so
Absolutely.
much. Oh, we could have so much more
Well,
to talk.
I think we can do a part two. Goodness sake. But it has been great, Deb, and I sure appreciate you and what you do, and I know your clients benefit from you, and I know that because of the energy you bring and the truthfulness. And so yeah, it was just a real pleasure to talk to you. I enjoyed every minute of this. And I'll tell you, I know we had fun. Here's why: because I lost track of time, Deb. Time didn't matter to me these 32 minutes, and that tells me we had fun.
Oh, I know. I literally like time. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? That because usually I'm pretty good about making sure. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like was so
Yes,
in the space in the
yes,
conversation. I do
yes,
want to make sure we let
yes.
know people know how to get a hold of you. So if people need to reach you, how should they find you?
So probably the best way is email. I mean, isn't that for everybody? So yeah, it's Eric Nance at, just like it sounds, pathways to you llc.com. And my website is pathways to you llc.com, just pathways to you llc.com. And then if you want to find the dark side of therapy, just go to YouTube, type in dark side of therapy, and we'll be there. And I really hope people will check it out. And please comment. And Deb, I'm here to get better at what I do. So if people have suggestions, give them to me, please, because
Yeah.
every voice counts. So yeah.
And I'm also thinking that if there's somebody that's watching that is sort of like over here cheering that may have one of those controversial topics to talk about, or some of the
Yep.
things you mentioned, they should get in touch with you to get on your podcast.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think again, if our podcast does nothing else besides that, bring it to a point where it's okay to have those difficult conversations. I've done my job. So absolutely, Deb. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Eric, please keep up the great work. I love that you're willing to have these conversations. Like this just lights me
Absolutely.
up. Like I'm like kind of on fire right now about this because
I
it's
am
like
too.
it's so good. I'm not even a therapist. I'm a coach, but it's like this gets me lit up because it's like yes, yes, yes. This is so true. Because these conversations, if we don't start having them, hello, our humanity is at stake. Like this is a thing. Our mental
You,
health is
you,
at stake. Our humanity is at stake, right?
you're right. You're right, Deb. And I'll say one more thing too. And this is straight from the mouth of my 86-year-old friend, one of my former professors. We're still good friends. A great conversation is one where you don't have to think and worry about what the other person is going to think. And I felt like we really had that for two people that don't talk a whole lot. This whole thing felt safe to me. And if
Yeah.
there's safety in conversation, you can say anything without fear of judgment or repercussion. And I think we really did that. So that's a credit to you, Deb, for allowing me to be in that space with you.
Thank you.
Um,
Well, credit to
yeah,
both of us, and it's a credit to really seeing each other. So Eric,
Absolutely.
thanks so much for coming on. We want to thank you. And we want to thank all of you for watching us today for your Infusion of Joy Fall series. Believe it or not, we only have one more week left next week. So please tune in, and just reminding everyone to go out, live, share, and lead with joy. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Thanks so much.